Welcome to Mr. UFC Vegas Fight Club TV. I am Kyle, your host. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC on ESPN +1, Dillashaw versus Cejudo. We're going to talk about the best bet play, our free play, and our overall feeling on this card. It is the first ESPN event, and it's something that we all thought would probably never happen. It was something between Dana White and ESPN. They did not like each other. There was always friction there, and now it's at the point. It's finally happening. We'll see it on ESPN. We'll see it on the app. It's a great thing. It's going to help elevate this sport, get it more in the public eye, more of a following, more bettors. So hopefully this will continue to grow all sorts of outlets for the UFC. And also I want to touch on, before we get into the free play, I have changed my name on Wagertalk. It is now Kyle Anthony. You will not see Mr. UFC Vegas. Yes, the name is here. It still is at Mr. UFC Vegas on Twitter. I'm going to be changing things around like we talked about at the end of last year. Wanted to make some changes, so please refer to me as Kyle Anthony. And I will also be changing this name of this channel, keeping it as Fight Club TV, making a couple changes there to that. But again, the format of this channel, everything else will stay the same. So wanted to touch on that as well. So now let's get into what we're all here for, the bets, the conversation about our free play. And again, our best bet play for the year last year, we're at 69%. We had a heck of a year, very profitable year. A lot of you guys were reaching out to me on Twitter, on through the comment section here. And again, I always appreciate those that comment down below. I always continually try to answer as many of those as possible, keep the conversation going. A lot of great people down there that have consistently supported this channel. So again, I appreciate all of that. But this has been an amazing, amazing journey so far. So we want to keep this going. The best bet play has done spectacular for us, but we got to keep going. And for me, I want to, that's the benchmark at this point. That's 69% plus 25.15 units for the year. Great year. I want to beat that this year, so we got to start somewhere. Best bet play is up for purchase on Wagertalk under Kyle Anthony. Take a look at it. I have the write-up of the free play that I'm going to be talking about, so take a look at it there. The link is in the description below. Comment, like, get involved. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is the free play. The free play is between Alexander Hernandez and Donald Cerrone. Now, this is a very interesting fight. You've got two guys here that, one is a journeyman within the UFC, been fighting for a long time in Donald Cerrone. And then you've got Alexander Hernandez, a young guy, 2 fights within the UFC, really looking to push forward, has starting to make a little bit of his name for himself. Very interesting how things are going for him. So the first thing you take a look at is the odds. You've got Alexander Hernandez is a -180, and then you've got Donald Cerrone is a +165. Now, very interesting where these odds are. I'm actually kind of shocked where these odds are, to be honest with you. You've got, Cerrone. I know there's a lot of bit of question marks on him, a little bit of the age situation, but that's, he's a sizable underdog against a guy that has fought two guys within the UFC. He's 10-1. Cerrone is 34-11. So he definitely has the experience when it talk about what's going on with inside the cage. Now, overall of his last 4 fights, I always like to rewatch 3 to 4 of each of the people, whoever I'm going to be betting. I always watch 3 or 4 of each of who I'm betting and who I am betting against. So I always like to take a look. Again, it's a puzzle for me. I'm trying to figure out where there's opportunities, where the other opponent is going to be able to expose him, multiple paths to victory, and see what kind of outcomes we can predict to place our money on. So the first thing was against, 4 fights ago, was against Darren Till. Darren Till against Cerrone. Cerrone kind of took this as a not a big deal kind of fight. Went out there and got destroyed against Darren Till. Darren Till put him away early, a TKO loss, and this was one that really started to look like Cerrone was not going to be able to really do much more within the UFC. It was kind of like, maybe this is his swan song, maybe this is the end. And then he fought Yancy Medeiros, and Yancy Medeiros is not a technical fighter. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and really be, doing the 1-2 jab and bouncing outside, 1-2 combination, bouncing outside, and all these other... Not technical. He's a brawler, likes to get inside, he wants to scrap, he wants to look for the big shot, he wants to make it sloppy, dirty boxing inside, looking for the clinch. That's kind of the way he's going. And in this fight here, I feel it was a little more tailor-made for somebody like Cerrone, who is a technical fighter, who also likes to brawl, but can be technical and can be smart in there. And in a fight like this, this was something that Yancy Medeiros, I think, was completely overwhelmed. He was not ready. He was not prepared for what Cerrone could bring. Cerrone goes out there and does get that TKO victory, which then kind of put it, hey, maybe he's not done. Then he went up there against Leon Edwards. Now, I actually like Leon Edwards. I'm a fan of his. I think that he can do a lot of great things within the UFC and within the division. And this is a fight here that, again, I wasn't sure, were they feeding him to the wolves here? Were they feeding Cerrone to the wolves here? Or was this something that, this is just going to be a tough fight? So I did not have a bet on this fight, but taking a look at it, I actually was heading more towards Edwards on this fight if I had to, when I was taking a look at this, but I was more of a stay away from it because Cerrone is very unpredictable. There's no doubt. And is he making that decline? Is the decline still there? And in that fight, it was a very close fight. I thought that there were spots there that Edwards could have possibly put Cerrone away if he capitalized. So it was a very tight fight. Cerrone did not get that victory. I'm sorry, did not get that victory. And it's a very tight fight though. But Edwards, you know what? He does put the pressure on. He's a tough fighter. And maybe it wasn't really stylistically a good matchup for Cerrone. But then the next fight against Mike Perry. Now this was one that I liked Mike Perry. I'm not going to lie here. I liked Mike Perry here. I thought Perry would come out there, use his strength, use his size, really push forward, because I think the pressure has always been a little bit of a question mark for Cerrone is, can he withstand that? But Mike Perry is just not an intelligent fighter. And I consistently say, hey, this guy's got ability, and I keep downgrading Mike Perry because he isn't a smart fighter. And when he went out there, it was an early stoppage, but he went out there and he even looked like he was landing some nice shots, but again, not being smart, gave an opportunity for Cerrone to get the finish. Cerrone gets the first round submission, and Mike Perry, I think, is really starting to fall back within the UFC, not really doing much anymore. I think that, he had so much hype. He's a marketable guy, but just not enough to really start to elevate his name and get his name really up the rankings, and he's just not doing it. So those were his last few fights there. He's had some wins, he's had some losses, but he consistently fights top fighters in Cerrone because he's a fan favorite. People like the way that he fights. But then you've got a guy like Alexander Hernandez who only has 2 fights within the UFC. And his first fight was against Darnush. And that fight here, you take a look at this. It was a short notice fight for Hernandez. Darnush is a guy he's a scrappy guy, likes to take it to the ground. He's more of a grappler when you take a look at his style. But Hernandez went out there, and I think that Darnush was not prepared even the slightest for what was happening. I mean, it was a young, Hernandez is really an unknown guy at that point coming into this kind of fight, and he got obliterated in 42 seconds. It was a knockout victory for Hernandez. Hernandez, I think, was like a plus 200 or 250 or somewhere in that range underdog. So he really came out there and showed that you could. It's very hard, though, also to really break down that. I mean, you can't really take too much out of that. Yes, he shows he has power. Yes, he shows he's got ability and athleticism. But when you knock a guy out very quickly, can somebody that's just first starting the UFC really go 3 rounds with a top-notch fighter? Now, Darnush is a good fighter, no doubt. But the next one was against Mercier. Now, against Mercier, this is a kind of guy who's well-rounded, tough fighter, likes to push forward, likes to get inside, some dirty boxing as well. That's the way that he is. And you take a look at what Hernandez did. Hernandez actually did that to Mercier. He was able to get close, push forward, smother him, land some big shots, and it was almost the completely opposite of what Mercier likes to be, that kind of guy, and it was the other way around. And I thought, although it was a 2-1, I think most judges had it 2-1. I think it was, honestly, in my opinion, it was a clean sweep. It was a clean sweep for Hernandez. Hernandez, I think, really, was able to stop the takedowns, was able to really work the combination from the outside, has great cage movement. But the big thing for me, when you take a look at what Hernandez does, is the fact that he is very explosive. He is absolutely explosive, and you've seen it in the 2 fights that he's had within the UFC. But apart from the fact that, yes, he's got the pressure, but it's the fact that Cerrone has had questionable issues with pressure. So that's a possible path to victory for him. But another big part is his distance control. I like how Hernandez he's got a nice fight IQ. He's a smart fighter. He doesn't just go out there. Yes, he maybe if he does expose himself a little bit, maybe. But I think he has the intelligence out there of a guy that's fought more than 2 times within the UFC. I think that he can bring a lot of that explosiveness, and if he can hone it in and actually focus and not just say, hey, I'm going to go out there and just try to crush Cerrone. I think that's the bad way to go about it. Could he do it? It's possible. But I think that if he goes out there and has more of a game plan, hones that energy, because you know what? He has the ability to go 3 rounds. But if he's going to go out there and he's going to just really unload, that changes where he's going to have. That changes your cardio. It changes how far you can go within a fight. So it's very interesting to see how he's going to do that. Now, the biggest red flag to me on Cerrone is the fact that now he went back down in weight to lightweight division. At this point in his career, I don't think that's the greatest thing, and I think that really pushes me a lot more towards Hernandez. When you take a look at Hernandez now, who is kind of big for the division, and also a younger guy, hungry, a lot of ability, explosive, and then you've got Cerrone, who declining a little bit, question marks on his motivation, if he's really motivated to keep moving forward, or is this more of a paycheck, and people like him because he's, again, a fan favorite kind of guy. But moving down in weight and having a depleted Donald Cerrone, I think opens up a lot of doors for Hernandez to not, this fight will not go to the ground. At least I don't think Cerrone will be able to get him to the ground. I think that the takedown defense of Hernandez is going to be there, and then he's going to be able to counter on those opportunities where Cerrone is not going to be prepared for. So I really like Hernandez here. I think Hernandez goes out there. The price tag is not that great. At minus 180, it's not the greatest price tag. I would more prefer it more in the 140, 130 range is where I think this fight should really be. I think it's a little bit spread out a little bit further than it really should be. I think the linesman's made it. But you take a look at it here, a win is a win. And to me, the value, yes, maybe there's a little bit of value, a slight value on Cerrone being a veteran, a crafty veteran, tough. But to me, I really like this young kid coming in here, going out and having a great performance. So I like Alexander Hernandez as my free play at minus 180. And again, when I have my allotted amount of money, when I take a look at it, 80% of it is going to be on my best bet play. And then the other 20% roughly is going to be on my free play. Parlays, value plays. So for me, it's going to be 3 fights that I'm going to be betting on. And again, one of them will be where most of my money is. And that's how you build your bankroll, and you bet a little bit more smarter than spreading your money over 10 fights because it's just on TV. So for me, I will be betting Alexander Hernandez in the featured fight of the prelims. Now, the other fight I wanted to cover is the main event. I think this is a very interesting fight, to say the least. I think it's something that a lot of people want to discuss. So for me here, I will have a little bit of exposure on this fight. It's very intriguing. But we will take a look at Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. Now, Cejudo is plus 175 currently, and you've got TJ at minus 205. Now, these two guys here, you've got a flyweight champion in Cejudo, you've got a bantamweight champion in TJ Dillashaw. Very interesting again, this champ thing has been really taking off in the UFC. You've got so many people want to do that. You got Amanda Nunes, you had Conor McGregor for that, you've got a DC champion, you've got all these 2 division champions. Now it looks like we're looking for another one here. So you take a look at these 2 guys real quickly. Now the first thing that you take a look at is that TJ Dillashaw is 12-2 within just the UFC, which is very impressive with the guys that he's fought, who he's fought, how well he's fought. I think that's very impressive. And the fact that the only 2 people that he's lost to is Dominic Cruz and a Sun Tzu, that's pretty impressive to say the least about that. But the fact that also his last 2 fights against Cody Garbrandt. Now, Cody Garbrandt was very highly touted, a lot of hype behind him. You know, I was a believer. I'm not going to lie. I was also a believer. And I thought that he, was really pushing forward as possibly the next big thing within the UFC. I was at UFC 217 with my wife. Awesome fight. We're there. Awesome card, I should say. We're there. But TJ goes out there and dominates and finishes Cody not only once, but twice. And even in that second fight, Cody didn't want to be emotional. He said, I'm not going to be emotional. I'm not going to be emotional. All throughout the interview process, all throughout media, everyone he was saying that I'm not going to, I don't want to be over emotional. And then as soon as he gets in the cage, he gets hit once, and then all he looked for was the big hooks. And TJ just picked him apart. And that's going to be something that Cody really needs to work on when he's in the cage. He really needs to focus a little bit more than just get that emotional side and just look for that spectacular knockout. Cody is very, very well trained. He's got a great coaching staff around him. Those are the things that you really need around you to really keep you focused and grounded when you have those big fights. So TJ went out there and did that. And prior to that, he fought John Lineker, and he dominated John Lineker. John Lineker, he's a good fighter, no doubt, a lot of power, but, really another great plan, another great game plan. He just looked to take him down, push forward, get him to the ground, and that was what he did consistently through that fight, and it was a clean sweep for TJ in that fight as well. But when you take a look at what he's able to do, now TJ he has that ability to be very, very relaxed. I mean, he's out there, and when even in these big moments, he's very, very relaxed, he's calm, and not only that, but he's able to be very calm and relaxed, and even the flow, even the way that he moves around the cage, very, very loose, and is able to smoothly move from orthodox to southpaw. And in those exchanges where he's moving, he's able to throw those combinations. And it really is tricky for a lot of fighters to pick that up and to really focus on where these attacks are coming from, where these combinations are coming from. So you give him a lot of credit on that side of how he's able to do that and how he's able to keep pushing forward when he's able to switch those stances. Not many people can do that within the UFC, and it's a lot harder than you would actually think it would be to go out there and to be able to throw hard strikes from either side and then be able to even be defending strikes from either side as well. So TJ is very, very well-rounded and very, very successful when what he's done within the UFC. And then you've got Henry Cejudo, who is an Olympic wrestler, has been, his accolades in wrestling are tremendous, but the biggest thing for him is going out there and beating Demetrious Johnson. Now, Demetrious Johnson versus Henry Cejudo, this was their second fight. The first fight was almost a joke, which was a couple of years ago. The first fight was completely lopsided for Demetrious Johnson. And their second fight, this was a great fight. I mean, this was a fight here again. You're almost writing off Cejudo and saying, "There's no way you can't beat this guy." DJ is one of the best in the UFC. What can he really do to Cejudo's a wrestler. Could he really outstrike Demetrious Johnson? And the big thing here, and you saw it about 2 fights ago, is the change and the evolving of Cejudo. Cejudo really adopted this wide stance, hand out front, kind of like a McGregor, kind of like, Machida, this karate stance, and he has really excelled using that. I think he's been very comfortable. I don't think he knew really how to stand. I think he wasn't really sure because obviously he's a wrestler. He's looking to kind of look to bull forward and have his hands up. And I think he's been very calm, and he looked fantastic against DJ. And DJ, that was the worst we've ever seen DJ, but I give credit to Cejudo on that. Some people say, hey, is DJ declining? I would more give the credit to Cejudo that he fought spectacular, he fought great, he was able to really work those combinations, get the takedown. He really looked almost to confuse DJ, who's been in there with a ton of fighters in that division, the best in that division, and he's been able to coast through all of them. So even early in that fight, when it was close, people said, how is this fight even close? Cejudo should be not in this fight, and he looked great. I think that he continues to evolve, and the fact he's able to now throw solid combinations really changes things because he was a one-dimensional fighter prior to that. Cejudo was really looked at as, hey, you're a wrestler, you're a wrestler, you're a wrestler. Now, look at what he's able to do. He's able to, he looks strong. And that's another thing, is that these pictures coming out of both of these fighters, although it'll make headlines and media headlines, TJ looks kind of emaciated. He's dropping in weight. He's looked fantastic in the bantamweight division. And now he's dropping weight to get this title, and is it too much? That's the biggest question now. The biggest question is this weight cut going to drain TJ? Is TJ gonna just be completely drained? And even when they showed him, he said, I have 10 more pounds to cut. He looked like a skeleton almost. I mean, and that's something that, of course, these guys are professionals. These guys gain weight back very quickly. Their plan and their meal plan and their hydration plan and everything else they do and their weight cutting plan are so precise that, you can't put too much into that. But also on the other side of it is that Cejudo is actually big for the flyweight division. So it's not like he's some small guy that, TJ's coming down and he's fighting a small... Cejudo's a big guy for the division. So he actually cuts weight, substantial amount of weight also to get to that. But he looks like over the last few fights, Cejudo has gained so much muscle and again, he's in the same division, but has gained so much muscle and strength, which could be a huge, huge difference maker for a guy like TJ, who is really draining his body to get down to this weight, where Cejudo seems comfortable, he's used to fighting in this division, and he has beat one of the best, arguably ever, in mixed martial arts, but definitely the best in that flyweight division ever in Demetrius Johnson. So there is a lot to be said about how this is going and what they're able to do. Now, to me here, when you look at the odds and the betting side of things, plus 175 on Cejudo, minus 205 currently on TJ. I mean, at first, to me, I did like TJ. Right away I started thinking, hey, TJ's going to come down there and he's going to beat up a guy that doesn't really know how to strike and stand, where TJ is so crafty, so tricky with his stand-up game. But the more I was looking at the footage and the more I was looking at how much Cejudo has been evolving, I like and getting these plus odds, you're pushing up at plus 200, you're getting close there, which I think the odds will actually push up a little bit more. I think that you're going to see, plus 285, I'm sorry, not 285, plus 185, plus 190. I think that is so much value for an Olympic wrestler who literally is evolving as we're watching him evolve. I think that he can really do a lot of things, and he's a lot more, He's got a lot more than just the wrestling now, and I think that a depleted TJ is going to be possibly the difference here, and the elevation of what Cejudo has been able to do over the last few fights and what he continues to do, I think is going to be the difference maker. Again, I think this is a very tight fight. I think it's very close, and to me, when I'm at the point where I'm going to take a fight and I want to have a little bit of exposure on that fight, and I feel it's going to be one of the few fights I'm going to be betting that night, I go with, if it's a tight fight and I say this is a 50-50 fight, and then you're getting plus 200 odds, plus 180 odds on somebody, I'm taking those odds. So to me here, I think the value betting-wise is definitely on Cejudo. I think it's worth it. TJ is a fantastic fighter, and I think he has looked like a world beater in the bantamweight division, and I think he should have been a guy that maybe should have moved up and fought in I just don't like the going down. I think that's something that, at a point, I don't think it's the right move. I think he did it, obviously, because they're getting rid of the flyweight division, and then Cejudo kind of, started, a little bit of chatter of, hey, I'll take on TJ. TJ came down. I'm sure the paycheck was nice, so it made it happen. But I think coming down is a very dangerous situation for TJ. I think it's a lot closer of a fight than a lot of people are saying, and to me here, I'm going to go with Henry Cejudo as a little bit of exposure on the main event for UFC on ESPN. So there you have it, everybody. Do not forget to check me out on Wagertalk. You will see, again, it is Kyle Anthony. You will see me there. So take a look. When you look at the handicappers, you will see my name there. Again, changing a little bit of the title here, playing around with a couple different ones here. We'll have a new logo. We'll have all new different things for the next event. The bet review show will be the same name and everything else, but the following event at the end of this month, we will then be having a new name, new stuff. If you guys want to throw out some new names, go ahead. Give me some new opportunities to hear some other, other titles. Why not? So we'll take a look at the next event. When we get to that, we will have the bet review show out probably Sunday, Monday, somewhere in there as well. So there you have it. Do not forget to follow me on Twitter at Mr. UFC Vegas. And that's it. This is Mr. UFC Vegas, soon to be Kyle Anthony. And this is Fight Club TV.